Well, howdy folks, welcome back to the shop. Today we're working on my 2005 Chevy Colorado. So it's got more than one problem on this left side over here. Obviously you can see I have the bearing laid out here and stuff. So what's happening is I'm getting an ABS code, and that code is C0035, which is a left front wheel speed sensor circuit malfunction. But also the bearing is going bad in this side anyway. Now usually they are related, mainly because if the bearing's going bad, it causes debris or shavings, whatever, to get up in this reluctor ring, and it causes this sensor to not read properly. Now, I have had luck with changing just the sensor, but my honest opinion, unless this cable gets ripped, cut, broken, something happens to this by itself, I would be changing this whole bearing assembly, because this does work, like I said, if you have it broke or something like that, but most of the time there's debris or it gets rusted, it gets metal shavings on it or whatnot, and that's where your error is coming from. So it's better off to change the whole bearing. Plus you have to take this whole thing apart anyway just to change this, so I would spend the extra money and do this. Now I am very much a fan of Timken bearings. So this is the bearing we got. It's an HA590058. You can see the part number on the box there. My opinion, Timken makes very good bearings. They always have. So I am a very big fan of Timken bearings. So one of the other problems that's common with these vehicles when changing these wheel bearings in it, and I read a lot of forums and stuff, so I'm not left out, especially with this vehicle here, but these bolts on the back side here, for some reason they rust something fierce. So I went ahead and ordered new bolts. I went ahead and got them from McMaster-Carr. So here's the bolts and the part number. They are M12 1.75 millimeter thread, but the part number is 93474A233. So I got new bolts to put on the back of these. I would recommend just getting new ones. I didn't get the zinc or the black oxide, mainly because there's not really much corrosion protection with them. The zinc plated are definitely better on that end. So we got everything set up here, ready to go. I already got the vehicle jacked up. I already got the tire off. So let's bring you in a little closer and let's start taking everything apart to get the bearing changed. All right, so I got you down here. So the first thing you need to do is release these pistons a little bit, or compress them a little bit. You can take them off and compress them with a C-clamp afterwards. I usually take a crowbar and then I just pry it just a little bit like that, and you can see it relaxes them enough. And this is exactly how I change my brakes as well. So next thing you need to do is take the caliper off, and the heads of those bolts are 13 millimeter. And now you pull your caliper out of the way, and I have a hook hanging back here for it. So one of the things whenever I get in here, I always make sure that these pins are free and the boots are clean, all that stuff, which they do look like they are already. So that's a good sign. Yeah, and they look pretty good already. So I'm not going to mess with those. But the tall tale sign is usually when you take it off and you can move that caliper in and out after you get them compressed, they're fine. Sometimes getting those boots on is a little bit pain. And the other thing is, if you can move these pins in and out freely, you're in good shape. So next thing you got to do is take these two bolts out, and you can see that they're rusted pretty good. Okay, so these caliper bracket bolts here, they're supposed to be 21 millimeter. They rusted up to the point now that 21 millimeter spins on it. So that's one of the things that I would recommend. Anytime you're doing stuff with rusty bolts, always try to use a 6-point socket. You'll have less chances around that head over. So what I end up having to get is a 13/16 to fit on there, which is slightly under the 21. Alright, then you just remove the caliper bracket. You always want to inspect your brake pads while you're here. They're wore down a little bit, but they're not terrible. So I'm going to probably get some on order and get them changed later on, or I'll look on the shelf. I may actually have a new pair up there, but they're going to be going bad soon. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take out these 4 bolts here. That's what actually holds the hub on, or the bearing and stuff. These bolts here are the ones that I was talking about. They rust so bad, and you can already see that they're rusted really bad. Usually I have to hammer a socket on and fight with them to get them off. So hopefully we can get them off relatively easy, but let's see. Alright, so this is normally how I get these off. Unfortunately, I don't know a better way, but I'm hammering a 14 millimeter socket on it. It did come loose though. So this one here, the 14 millimeter was too small, so I actually had to use the 15, and it came free. Now before we can pop the bearing out, we have to take the cable off, and you know, I kind of did this out of order, but I knew this bearing, I'm going to have to beat it out. That's normal for these. But what you need to do is take out these 2 clips here, and I like using these flat pliers. A lot of times you can come in here and just kind of squeeze just gently and push on both of them, and it pops it just like that. And then you just grab a hold of the wire and pull it, and then you know, do your normal press and pull. There it is. And these guys here you just pop out. Actually, if you really wanted to, you could cut them. I usually use dikes. I don't squeeze them, but I just use them to pry, just like that. Same with that one. So next thing is this bolt and this bolt down here. This one here is has a 10 millimeter head. And the bolt is captive to this little bracket too. See how it stays with the bracket. Alright, that one wants to fight me a little bit. It is a 13 millimeter nut. I'm sorry, the nut head is 13 millimeter. Okay, that one wants to fight me a little bit, and it broke off the bracket, so I'll deal with that here in a bit. Alright, so now comes the fun part. We got to try to get this guy out, and a lot of times you have to beat and beat and beat to get this thing out. So hopefully it'll come out relatively easy. Let's give it a shot and see what happens. I think it's laughing at me. And I didn't mean to drop it, but it is what it is. Alright, so here's the wheel bearing that we got out of there. And next thing you have to do is take these bolts out here, these 6 bolts out here, and that takes the rotor off of the wheel bearing. And that's one of the things that I never did like about this design, is to change rotors on this vehicle, you have to take the daggone wheel bearing out. That just don't make any sense to me. I don't know why you would do that. But anyway, let's get these bolts out and get back to it. Alright, so I don't have my air compressor on, so I'm just going to use my electric impact for these. The head of these bolts are 17 millimeter. And there you go. What I was doing there is dropping it to see if it would release the rotor. Yeah, so then you got to fish these through. So there's the rotor. So here's our bad wheel bearing. So the only thing we're going to do before we put this back on is obviously you can see the rotor's not in the great shape, but it's not terrible. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put this in the lathe, and we're going to go ahead and skim it on both sides. Doesn't feel like we'd have to take much off, but yeah, so we're going to skim both sides before we put it back on. Alright, so I got everything set up here in the lathe. I already went ahead and got it dialed in on this axis here. So I wanted to show you that what I'm going off of is the face of this old hub. So what this is I had an old wheel bearing go bad, and I saved it purposely for just doing this. So I cut all the bearings and everything off of it. So it's just a regular chunk of steel, but it has all the bolt holes in it for your lug nuts, and then all your mounting holes in it for your rotor. So what we did is got that set up there, and I just want to show you, you can see on the dial indicator, it's not even moving hardly. So if it's anything, it's maybe a half thousandths out. So we're ready to go ahead and skim this. So let's get to it. Alright, so we got everything set up here. It's a little bit of tight clearance. I already have everything dialed out to 0. So right now I did a skim coat here. You can almost see it there. So we're ready to start. And one of the things that I wanted to mention is, you know, there's a lot of dust and stuff that comes off of this. So you should have a mask or something on. And it's going to make a heck of a noise, so hearing protection is always a good idea too. So let's get started. We're going to start off kind of small. We're going to go maybe a 10,000ths cut just to see how it looks. I forgot that the cast iron really flies off. And there you have it. That cleaned it up no problem. So let me get this back out. Let's get it flipped over and get the other side cut. Alright everybody, I got everything laid out here. I just kind of wanted to show you the rotor. I got it turned. It didn't take very much off of both sides, so I'm very happy with that, but it did clean up all the rust and stuff that was on it. And I wanted to make a note that there is a specification on the thickness of these. And it's not recommended to turn them down below that, so please, you know, consult with that if you do end up turning these down. A lot of times it's on the edge here, but what happens is it gets built up with so much rust you can never find it. But it's definitely spec'd in the manuals and stuff. And this is what I wanted to show you over here. Is this is the hub that I used to turn everything down. And what it is I just cut all this off the back side here so I could use it as like a jig. And you can feel this bearing. You can actually hear it, how bad it is. So, you know, it's a good idea to get that thing changed. So I got everything set up here ready to go. I already got anti-seize on everything. I put anti-seize on this. I don't know if it'll help. It's more of a peace of mind thing. I also did it on this. I got anti-seize on all the bolts and everything. So we're ready to put this together. So why don't we get started here? So you have to fish all the wires through the rotor here and onto this. and I'm gonna get them run down with the electric impact. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get these torqued off of camera real quick. I don't remember exactly what the torque's supposed to be, but I'll go get those torqued and then we'll get ready and get everything else installed here. Alright, so we're ready to get everything back installed. This bolt up here, remember how that bracket broke on me? I just went ahead and cut it off with the cutoff wheel. So this dust shield, I mean, it's in really bad shape. I'm going to go ahead and put it back on only because I cannot find them anywhere. I don't know what I'm going to end up doing about that, so I'm hoping the next time I have to change the rotors, I'm hoping it don't fail inspection because of this. But next time I do rotors or whatever, hopefully not another wheel bearing, but that's probably when I'm going to go ahead and think about doing this. So what you want to do is feed those wires up through, and this is where you have to be a little bit careful is, you know, this wire, it's right here, it's a little bit tight to get through this hole, and you just have to make sure you don't pinch it. So I usually rock it up a little bit. Just like that. Alright, so you can see I got all four of those bolts in. So next thing is the caliper bracket. Okay, so you can see I got all four bolts in, and let me tell you, buying those new bolts, I would recommend anybody to do that. They went in without any issues, plus they're a nice size. I think they're 16 millimeter, which is kind of a little bit odd, but you know, it's so much nicer to have new bolts in there. Hopefully next time when I take it apart, it's not a problem. So the next thing to get on here is the caliper. And you know how I squeezed that before, it made it so much easier to get this on. Alright, so since the caliper bracket's on and everything's done there, I did want to make a point here, is a lot of people don't know, but on the inside of these pins that are here, there's usually a flat on both of them. That way you can put a wrench on it if you need to. Sometimes you don't need to. Sometimes you do. Same with this bottom one down here. You can put a wrench on it, on the pin itself, to keep it from spinning if you have problems with it. So, let's get you turned around here. Let's hook up the cable, and we are pretty much done. Alright, so we got you turned around here. We'll go ahead and get this put on. And since we kind of lost our bolt on this one, get that fed up through the hole there. But I'm gonna have to see if I have a bolt in the cupboard here, and then these just snap in. But you just plug it in, and then if you push it back through, you can snap it back into place, and just like that. So let me get a wrench and let me see if I can find another nut for there. Unfortunately, I don't know if I have one. Alright, so hang tight for a second. Alright guys, I just wanted to bring you in real quick. I don't want to bore you with putting the tire and stuff back on. You know, everyone kind of knows how to do that, but I just wanted to kind of show you that I did a global scan, you know, which includes all the OBD2 and the ABS, and it does the powertrain, it does all that stuff. And right now there is no codes stored in here. So the ABS already cleared itself, because a lot of times when you turn the ignition on, it already does a system scan on its own. So apparently it did that already, and right now we have no code. So that's a good sign on that end. So hopefully I don't have any ABS problems now. Just so you know, again, that part number for the bearing that I put in, which is the Timken bearing, which I really like Timken, is HA590058. And the bolts that I bought for that wheel bearing, which I'm probably going to go ahead and change over there, I bought them from McMaster-Carr, and the part number is 93474A233. So with that said, guys, I really thank you for watching. Please hit that like and subscribe button, and until next time, take care.